Welcome in, everybody, to the Week 14 recap. I can't believe we're 14 weeks down. Man, only 4 more weeks. It's Monday morning, so we still got 2 Monday night games, but only 4 more weeks of the NFL. 3 more weeks of fantasy football if you made the playoffs. And for some of you, maybe you're watching this and you're eliminated, unfortunately, or some of your teams. It sucks. It's always a bittersweet time of year. The leagues are less active, less pickups on the waiver wire, and just people are not as interested, especially if they are eliminated already. But for those of you that hopefully made it, hopefully got some advice from us or other shows that you listen to, and you made the playoffs in some of your leagues, we're here to kind of just recap the 12 Sunday games that we had, and just kind of go over if there's anything interesting that happened. Now we're at the point in the season where, the beginning of the year, all this stuff is really important to go over: usage and snap shares and how they're using them in what situations. And at this point, we kind of know. We kind of know what's happening. We kind of know who's being played and who's not, and all that. But so it's going to make it a little easy to kind of go through this recap here. But we are going over the 12 games, and I'm just solo today, as you can see. So you'll hear a lot of me talking, but we're just going to jump right into it here. We're going to start with the Bucs at the Falcons, the battle for first place at the NFC South. Excuse me. And both teams are 6-7. I think there's 3 teams 6-7. But anyways, Bucs pull out the win. If you streamed Baker Mayfield this week, I think you are happy, obviously, because you got 3 total touchdowns, only 144 yards passing, but 3 total touchdowns kind of makes up for that. So he's going to be an interesting one for the rest of the season. If you've been like I do in a lot of my leagues, I jump back and forth with quarterbacks. I usually don't take one of the stud quarterbacks. So, I have a couple on my team, and I just kind of stream whoever has the best matchup. Baker gets Packers, Jags, Saints in the playoffs. So I feel like those are not terrible teams. They're not great teams. But overall, Baker Mayfield has been pretty good if you were kind of using him and another player to stream. He's QB 15 on the year. He's averaging over 16 points and 4 point per passing touchdown. He's just been pretty solid of a player, even with the down 3 weeks. Rachaad White is awesome. He's going to be a league winner for sure. The dude is, man, I didn't think he was going to be this good. I knew he was going to get the volume. I thought maybe it would dwindle throughout the season if he wasn't good enough. The dude's been awesome. He's RB4 on the year, and I'm pretty sure he's like RB2 since like week 7. Absolutely awesome. Another great game. He hasn't had a bad game since week 6. And he's only had really 3 bad games all year long. So you are potentially winning leagues here. There's nothing you need to know about them. Now, in terms of the receivers here, Godwin's going to be hard to trust. If you somehow made the playoffs and with Chris Godwin still on your team, man, he's a bench piece for sure. Like if you have a week where you need him in the playoffs for in a pinch, maybe, but you want to avoid him. Mike Evans, you'll forgive him. He's been so good this year. We'll kind of forgive what he did in this game. Only 1 catch. Could have had a touchdown. Just didn't get his foot in before the hand came down. Not really much to talk about with the Bucs. Besides Rachaad White and Mike Evans, they're still the must-starts on this team. Hold on to Baker and Godwin maybe if you have them. On the Falcons side of things, it was nice to see Desmond Ridder throw for 350. I was really worried. I was telling people to bench Drake London. Look what he did, 10 for 172. So maybe in plus matchups, Mike Evans is going to be Drake London's going to be a good start. Now they get the Panthers the first week of the playoffs, who have actually been a really tough team against wide receivers. Then they get the Falcons. You can probably start him. They get the Colts. You can probably start him against the Colts. But man, it's just so up and down. Like you can get last week 1 for 8. You can get this week 10 for 172. It's just so up and down with this guy, and man, it's really hard to trust. If he's your wide receiver 3, or a flex in a 3 wide receiver league, I think he's a nice player to have. Just because, if he puts up 5 points, it probably won't kill you. You should have more players that can kind of boost you up there. But if he hits, then you're probably winning your week. So I like him in that situation. 2 wide receiver leagues, though, we have to talk. Bijan did get in the end zone and had 5 for 54 through the air, so he had a good game. He's playing over 75% of the snaps. Bijan is a must start. Kyle Pitts, if you're still holding on to him, like the last few weeks have been pretty good for him. 3 for 57 in a touchdown. That's fine as a tight end. Like really, like Kyle Pitts still has a lot of potential in my opinion. If he could just give you consistently 4 or 5 catches for 50 yards, and then if he gets 1 week over the next 3 in the playoffs, if you make it all the way to the championship and you play the next 3 weeks, if he wins you one of those weeks from a big performance, which we haven't seen this year, I still think he's capable of, then you're going to be happy. So not really much else to talk about with the Falcons. Like just a solid, Bijan, Drake London are going to be starters in a lot of leagues, and Kyle Pitts, we'll see. I just don't know if it's ever going to happen. So we have the Colts at the Bengals is the next game here. Bengals do pull this out. Jake Browning has been really awesome. We'll start with the Colts though. Gardner Minshew, he just worries me. Like I know people were really high on him streaming this week, and I was just a little worried about the inconsistency. And it's just going to be super hard to trust in the playoffs. Like I know he gave us 15 points. He kind of seems to be capped at like a 18, 19 point. I know he had almost a 30-point week back in week 7, but you just look at some of his game logs, like 12 and a half, 9 and a half, 6 and a half. That's not cutting it. And the upside of exploding is not there either, in my opinion. Like you're hoping for 15, 16 points from Gardner Minshew and not under a 15-point week. So I just want to overall avoid him. Zach Moss, man, I don't really understand. You're going to continue to start him because you can't get away from a guy that's going to get 17 touches like he did this week, or like 20 touches last week. He's out there all the time. He's doing all the work. It's just one of those things, like you got to play the odds in fantasy football. And are you going to take a guy who's getting 9 touches in Keaton Mitchell and hope he busts off a big one? Or are you going to just play the odds and say, this guy's getting 20 touches, the odds are he's going to have a good game. So you're still starting Zach Moss despite poor performances, unless you're just loaded at running back. Michael Pittman has been awesome all year long. A guy I really liked. I thought he was criminally underrated heading into this year. Even if it was going to be with Anthony Richardson, I still think he would have been good. A little bit better probably this year with Minshew, but he's wide receiver 11 on the year. He hasn't had a bad game since week 5, and even that is like almost 8 points in half PPR. Is not killing you. He's only had like one bust game this year. He's been really good. One bust game, one meh game, and then everything else has been almost double digits or more in half PPR, which is really good. So Josh Downs, maybe hold on to him, but it's at this point, when are you going to feel confident trusting him? You're going to need to see a big game, so you're not starting him in week 15. At the earliest, you're starting in week 16, and even then, it's kind of like, you only saw one good game from him. So like the player, like the future for him, but the fact of the matter is, like, he hasn't had a good game since week 8. He hasn't had a really good game since week 7. So his 4-game stretch was nice. That's all I don't know. I'm kind of ready to move on from him, or at least just definitely be benching him. But yeah, not much to talk about on the Colts. It's Zach Moss and Michael Pittman are the must starts here, and that's kind of it for this team. On the Bengals side, Jake Browning once again looked good. Now, I'm not going to be starting Jake Browning in the fantasy playoffs like we've seen this year. Like, think about Josh Dobbs, a guy who was a backup, late round draft pick, undrafted, hadn't really done anything for a few years. Get his chance, look good, and then he's kind of turned back into a pumpkin. That could still happen with Jake Browning, in my opinion. But the fact is, he's had over 24 points each of the last 2 weeks. I'm not going to start him. I can't trust him. He did leave the game. He came back. But the nice thing is you should feel confident with your Cincinnati guys. So Joe Mixon, if this offense is going to be moving, he's going to be fine. He's going to get the volume. We talked about it with Zach Moss. Joe Mixon, 24 touches. Yeah, over 120 total yards and a touchdown. He's a must start. Jamar Chase is still a must start, even though he only went 3 for 29. You saw what he could do, like what he did last week with the big game. T. Higgins had 2 for 72. He's a little bit more of a risky play. If you're in deeper leagues, he's probably going to be starting, but 2 wide receiver leagues, I could see benching T. Higgins. Chase Brown is going to be an interesting one. I think a lot of people are going to be picking him up. It's nice to see them using him more. Someone that I kind of liked coming into the year from Syracuse, just he got all the carries, just all the carries. He carried that offense in college and, Illinois, sorry, not Syracuse. And he just kind of carried that offense, and I like his profile and things like that. And I think he's an interesting guy. I don't think you're going to trust him this year to start in the playoffs unless you see more usage from him. The fact is he's still, 17 snaps in this game, only 8 carries and 3, he did have 3 catches. One of them was a big catch, 54-yarder. I think it was a touchdown. So you're not going to expect that. He's kind of like a Keaton Mitchell, man, you really have to be desperate to kind of start him because you're only going to be getting maybe 12 touches in the game, which could be valuable, but he's definitely a name to think about for next year. So, and maybe throw him on your bench. Like I wouldn't mind, like if Mixon does get hurt, Chase Brown could be a smash play the last 2 weeks of the year, so to help you in the playoffs. But that's it with the Bengals. So we will move on to the next team, the Jags and the Browns. Browns pulled this one out. We'll start with the Jags. I'm not sure what to make of this. I know Trevor Lawrence had the high ankle sprain. He was moving around like it wasn't really bothering him, but threw 3 interceptions. He threw for 50 times, 250 for 3 touchdowns. Again, he ran the ball 3 times. So it felt like it wasn't completely bothering him. I just hope I hope we could just kind of throw this game out the window. And, from this point forward, the Jags, they get a tough matchup against the Ravens. I don't want to avoid Lawrence there. So if you don't have a backup and Trevor Lawrence is your quarterback, I would think about grabbing someone because I don't want to start him against the Ravens. Plays the Bucs and then the Panthers. So Panthers are actually pretty good against quarterbacks. Bucs not so much. I would throw, if you're in the playoffs with Trevor Lawrence as your main QB, make sure you have a backup quarterback because there's 2 matchups there that I potentially don't want to start him in. ETN, you're just going to continue to start. He had over 60 total yards and a touchdown. Tough matchups coming up, except for that Panthers game in the championship round in week 17. But Ravens, Bucs the next 2 weeks is some tough matchups if the Buccaneers get healthy. Evan Ingram is awesome, has been awesome all year. I generally don't draft tight ends in that Evan Ingram range where he was going this year, that round 6-7 range. I just think it's a little too high to be drafting them. But the fact is that Evan Ingram's been top. He's tight end 5 this year in half PPR. And he's just been really, really consistent. Kind of had a bad couple games there for a while, but he's bounced back in a huge way. Calvin Ridley, 453, 13 targets. They just don't seem to be on the same page, Lawrence and Ridley. I don't know. I'm in a league where I have Ridley, and I just can't get away from him. We play 12-team, and we're starting 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 3 flexes or something. I can't get away from him in those type of leagues, but in 2 wide receiver leagues and even maybe 3 wide receiver leagues with the flex, you can. That's all really to talk about. Zay Jones definitely needs to be picked up if he hasn't been. 14 targets for Zay Jones. Again, turned into 5 catches. It's just this whole offense did not seem – it seemed off. I'm going to be wary of this offense heading in to play Baltimore, although we did see Stafford have a good game. But if I can pivot from guys like Lawrence and Ridley next week, I really want to play the Ravens. I'm not pivoting from Evan Ingram or ETN, though. On the Brown side of things, Joe Flacco, he's making this a competent passing game, and that's what we love to see. And it's paying dividends to some of their guys. So Flacco had over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's awesome to see, man. He's played well the for a couple games that he's played. They get the Bears, Texans the first 2 weeks of the playoffs. I kind of like those. I know Bears are better. Texans, I think you can throw on them. So, I'm not saying start Joe Flacco, but you could do worse. You could definitely do worse at this point. Jerome Ford, he is what he is. The dude is just running back 24 every week. It's crazy. You look on, he's the top 20. He's like a low end RB2 each week. He's an RB19 overall. Ever since since the bye, they're bye in week 5. So since week 6, he's just Mr. Consistent. Has only had 1 game, 2 games under double digit points in half PPR. One of those was a 9.9 game, but he's just the last 6 weeks, he's just been getting you between 10 and 12 half PPR points. And you'll take that from your RB2. Honestly, you will. And he did that again this week. Didn't get in the end zone, but he had over 80 total yards. Oh, he did score. No, 80 total yards with 5 catches. You will take that. Kareem Hunt did get the rushing touchdown here. Just to kind of double check on their how they're using their running backs. We saw in terms of snaps, we saw Jerome Ford with 43, Kareem Hunt with 28. So and Jerome Ford ran a lot more routes. So I think Jerome Ford is definitely a start for him for sure. You're just gonna start him and you're gonna get 10 to 12 points. Hold on to Kareem Hunt, but I don't want to start him yet. And Njoku had an awesome game. He's been really freaking good this year. I wonder where he's at. I know he started off terribly. So he's tied in 9 this year. And his first 6 weeks, including one of those, the first 7 weeks of the year, one of those included a bye, was pretty bad. His best game over those first 6 games was 7.9 points, which isn't terrible in half PPR. But since then, man, since week 8, and I'm just going to double check here. Since week 8, Njoku's the tight end 3. It's George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, David Njoku. So that's awesome to see. And he's averaging double-digit half PPR points. Amari Cooper is going to be good if Flacco's going to throw like this, 7 for 77. Elijah Moore, we can probably move on from that. So, this team it's Jerome Ford and Njoku and Cooper with Flacco here. You can feel confident starting all those guys for sure. So we're going to jump out of this game and jump into the Texans at the Jets. What a disappointing game. No one saw this coming. I know there's bad weather. CJ Stroud did not look good. The Jets defense is really good. We were talking about fading them, CJ Stroud, that is, because of the weather and the matchup. Now, I will say this, Zach Wilson threw for 300 yards in that same game. So I know Stroud left the game with I think it was a concussion, so he could miss this week. That's going to suck if you've been relying on him. Then, you obviously need to find a backup to stream this week. I do think they bounce back. I think it was just a combination of the Jets are really good. They've shut down so many good quarterbacks, but the Texans get the Titans, Browns, Titans. They get the Titans twice in the fantasy playoffs. Now, again, you might be without Stroud, which is going to suck, but if you could survive that week, get to the fantasy championship against the Titans, I think that's a good play. So we'll see on Stroud's health. That's the biggest thing here. In terms of their running backs, I'm just double checking their snap share. So Devin Singletary had 32 snaps, Dario Gumbawale had 16, and Dameon Pierce had 8. So I don't know if this was just Dario Gumbawale is kind of their third down guy. They were losing big in this game. They lost 30-6. They just kind of went with him, I guess. Devin Singletary got the early down work and the goal line work and the 2-minute drill, short yardage stuff. If you're going to start any running back from this team, it is Devin Singletary. And he rewarded you if you did start him. He had 65 yards and a touchdown. So I would move on from Dameon Pierce. You're not starting Dameon Pierce in the fantasy playoffs. You're crazy if you do. Other than that, just kind of throw it out the window. Nico Collins, to me, is still going to be really good if Stroud's there. a little worried if Stroud's not there. Also, Nico Collins got hurt, so monitor that health status too. If he is out, guys like Robert Woods, Noah Brown, and maybe even Mechie need to be rostered. The problem is if Stroud's not there next week, I don't know if I want to start any of those guys. So a lot of it's going to hang, and it sucks that it came, first game of the playoffs type of thing. So on the Jet side of things, it was good to see Zach Wilson come back and prove he is the best quarterback on this team. We asked that question last week. Yes, Zach Wilson's the best quarterback on this team, healthy at least quarterback. So I'm glad that he came out, had a good game. He threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's really good. Breece Hall still struggling. I mean, only 10 carries, but 40 yards. Dalvin Cook got some run here. Just kind of looking at the snap shares for them. Breece Hall, 42 snaps. Dalvin Cook, 16. Part of that could have been, it was a blowout. Breece Hall, though, 8 for 86 and a touchdown through the air. So he's basically been a receiver this year. Like his fantasy production, we talked about it. I think now it's 8 games that he's played, and he has less than 240 yards rushing combined over the last 8 games. That's not good, but his receiving is awesome. So he might end up with more receiving yards than rushing yards this year. I think he will, actually. Now I want to check that out. What is Breece Hall's stats here? I wouldn't be surprised if has more receiving yards. On the year, Breece Hall has 625 yards rushing. Okay, 435 yards receiving. But these last 4 games, how it's going, he could end up with more receiving yards. You're still starting him because he's so explosive and he's winning through the air. So he give you 120 yards and a touchdown. So Breece Hall's a start. Garrett Wilson's back to a must start. 14 targets, 9 catches, 108 yards. Even a guy like Tyler Conklin is not a bad play if Zach Wilson's going to play this good, because Tyler Conklin, 4 for 57. Like, you'll take that from Tyler Conklin and from your tight end. If you're streaming tight ends, you're going to take that. So you look since week 9, Tyler Conklin over those 6 games, 3 good games, 3 bad games. So that's kind of the life of a streaming tight end. So in good matchups, I wouldn't mind Conklin. So yeah, I mean, it's good to have Zach Wilson back, and this team's easy now. It's Breece Hall and it's Garrett Wilson must starts, and then maybe a Tyler Conklin. So we'll move on from that game into the Rams and the Ravens. Sorry, I'm just writing down my time here. Into the Rams and the Ravens we go. Really, really good game. Probably the game of the week here. Went to overtime. Rams almost pulled it out. Just from the Rams' point of view, feel confident starting all these guys. Stafford, if you need a quarterback because you had CJ Stroud or you don't want to start Trevor Lawrence this week, Stafford is definitely a guy I'm targeting. He just lit up the best team against quarterbacks. The Ravens had shut down like every quarterback they played. Matthew Stafford just threw for almost 303 touchdowns. So just looking at the Rams schedule, they get the Commanders, Saints, Giants. Man, Stafford is going to be a potential league winner at the quarterback position over the playoffs. But Commanders and Giants are juicy. Saints are not the same defense. That is really, really nice. Love that. So all these, and you're back to just starting your guys. Kyron Williams is another league winner, waiver wire pickup, 25 for 114 yards on the ground. Didn't do much in the air, but still, like, unfortunately, he gives you 3 catches. So, like, in PPR, gives you a decent game, but he's just getting so much work, and he's producing with it more often than not. What's crazy with Kyron Williams is that he's RB6 on the year, and he missed 4 games. He missed 4 games, and he's RB6 on the year. He's averaging he has the second most points per game average, third most, behind Christian McCaffrey and Achane at 19.1. Dude's been a stud. Cooper Kupp, this is why we always say start your studs. We mentioned it on the Start Sit show. I don't know how you get away from Cooper Kupp. If you had a bunch of good options, I understand it. Don't know how you get away from him. 8 for 115 and a touchdown. He's back into starting lineups. Puka Nacua, if this is his floor, 5 for 84. If Stafford's going to play like this, they get really good matchups these guys are going to be starters. Davis Allen, a tight end. If Higbee's going to be out, Davis Allen might be a decent play. 4 for 50 and a touchdown. So feel good about the Rams, even though they lost, and feel good about the future. If you play Dynasty, the future of the Rams is really, really nice, because I feel like this year was kind of like a year. If they just sucked, I think you could see no more McVay, no more Stafford. They move on or retire or whatever. The fact that they're 6-7, just going to look at the playoff standings right now. I know there's so many teams that are like, this year is so weird. So many teams that are right there in both the AFC and NFC. So 6-7, they're the 8th seed right now. So if the Packers lose, they could potentially, I don't know if they would move up over the Packers. They would both be 6-7 if the Packers lose tonight. Don't think the Packers are going to lose, but the fact is they're one game behind the Packers. They're one game behind the Vikings. So they're right there. They're going to be playing meaningful football in December. My point is the dynasty future for this team is bright. I think they come back. I think this is what McVay wanted to see. Can this team be competitive? Can we play meaningful games in December? Maybe go down even to the last couple weeks of the year where we're fighting for a playoff spot. Maybe even sneak into the playoffs. But even if they don't, I think McVay, the plan was never to win the Super Bowl this year. They're kind of doing a soft rebuild. The fact that they got guys like Puka, they found guys on defense in the draft this year. They'll get another draft here. This could be a good team next year for sure. So Lamar Jackson for the Ravens, moving on to them, proving why he's a stud. 316 through the air, 3 touchdowns at 70 yards on the ground. You're always starting Michael. Almost called him Michael Jackson. You're always starting Lamar Jackson. There's no question there. I'm a little worried about Gus Edwards. Like, the usage really isn't there anymore. So this is the breakdown. You had 29 snaps for Justice Hill, 23 for Keaton Mitchell, 18 for Gus Edwards. Early down work, it was slightly in Keaton Mitchell's favor. Gus Edwards was 16 snaps, Keaton Mitchell 21, Justice Hill 9. Goal line was still Gus Edwards, but I don't know how you can start Gus Edwards in the playoffs. 2-minute drills, Justice Hill, third down. Even Keaton Mitchell, I'd still hold on to him. And if you're hoping for, you're just absolutely desperate for a boom play, you can throw him in there. But I don't know how you can start any Ravens running back at this point in the playoffs confidently. You can't be getting 6 for 15 from your RB2 in the playoffs. You're going to lose your matchup. So most likely. In terms of the receivers, if they're going to throw like this, then you're going to have 3 viable pass catchers, in my opinion. Odell Beckham is one of them. Now, I want to check his snap share, because his snap share for the last 3 weeks was pretty low, which it was a kind of a tiebreaker for me when talking about who do I start, Odell Beckham or blank, guys in that same range. It was like, well, this guy's playing 70% of the snaps. Odell Beckham's playing 35. In this game, he played 53. We're getting to the point where, that's fine. They definitely seem to be targeting them. 4 for 97 and a touchdown. He's part of this passing game. So he's a guy that I can maybe take a shot on during the playoffs. Isaiah Likely is potentially your tight end. I know he had 54 of his 83 yards came on 1 catch, but how many tight ends can you say can take a 54-yard touchdown to the house? Not many. Isaiah Likely is one of those. And Zay Flowers, 10 targets, 6 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. All 3 of those guys I can justify starting depending on, your other situation. So just get away from those running backs now. Don't rely on those running backs unless one of them gets hurt or we see something change where Keaton Mitchell gets a majority of the carries or snaps or whatever. I'm going away from them all. So moving right along, we got the Lions at the Bears here. Lions unfortunately lose. As you know, my dad, who's normally on this show, is a Lions fan, so I'm sure he's a little disappointed. Jared Goff has not looked good lately. I'm just going to double check this, but Jared Goff obviously started off the year really well. He's still throwing touchdowns. I'm just looking at it now, 5 interceptions over the last 5 games. Only 1 game in the last 4 games over 250 yards passing. from an NFL point of view, he doesn't look great lately. Now, they're not going to bench him or anything, so you can probably still start him in the playoffs if he's your quarterback. You look at the 4 weeks prior to this last week, he had at least 16.5 points in each game and 4 points per passing touchdown, and that's fine. Lions schedule, they get the Broncos, Vikings, Cowboys. They have a tough schedule, man. That's a tough schedule. I'm a little worried about this team. A little bit worried about this team, that's for sure. That being said, I'm still rolling out the running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs, 11 for 66 and a touchdown. He had 3 catches. David Montgomery, 10 for 66 with 3 catches. I know Jahmyr Gibbs got the majority of the snaps, but they were playing from behind in this game, and that's going to happen when they're playing from behind. So they get the Broncos, which I think that game should be a little bit closer. The Vikings, that game should probably be a little bit closer. So you should feel fine about both these running backs. I'm still starting them. Still starting Laporta. Still starting Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I'm still starting those guys. No question in the 2 running backs. So let's just hope this team can bounce back. In terms of the Bears, Justin Fields, 220 yards passing and a touchdown, 58 yards on the ground and a touchdown. He's in your lineups. People are always asking me, like, do I start trying to think like Justin Fields or Brock Purdy, and I always lean the rushing upside guys, and I know Purdy, favorite for the MVP on this great offense, looks so good, so efficient, and then you look at the numbers at the end of the day. Guess who had more points in 4 point per passing touchdown? Justin Fields did. So the rushing floor for these guys are the rushing floor is too strong to not start these guys. They're top 5. Lamar's, Hurts, Allen, Fields. These guys are top 5 quarterbacks because they're going to give you at least 5-6 points on the ground. And that's a touchdown or a touchdown and a half if you play in 4 point per passing touchdown. So these running backs, if you're going to start anyone, it's going to be Deontay Foreman, it looks like, is what they're rolling with. Like, I know it's like, why aren't they playing Roshan, see what they got? I think this coaching staff's trying to save their jobs. So they're going to play the players they think can help them win today and this week and any given week. So he had 39 snaps to Roshan's 20 to Khalil Herbert's 12. So obviously they don't like Khalil Herbert. Only had 3 carries, just as many carries as DJ Moore. So if you're going to start any running back here, it's going to be Deontay Foreman, but he's going to need a touchdown to pay off. Now, he could get that chance. He's going to get 13, 15 carries, but I kind of want to avoid all of them. I'm still fine with obviously DJ Moore is a must start with Justin Fields out there, 2 total touchdowns. And Cole Kmet is still a start for me with Fields out there. 5 for 66. You will take that from your tight end any day of the week. So it's Fields, it's Moore, Kmet if he's your tight end, and that's kind of it. I kind of want to avoid the running backs. I'd hold on to Deontay Foreman if I could. I think I'm dropping definitely Roshan and probably Khalil Herbert as well at this point. They just, I don't know, either not healthy or they don't like him. So that is it for that game. We're going to get into the next game here where we got the Panthers and the Saints. Panthers and the Saints. Panthers fall to 1-12. That is horrendous. Yeah, I mean, the only player really that I want to probably start at this point is Chuba Hubbard because he's getting the touchdowns. Let me check the snap shares here. We had, for the Panthers, we had 62 snaps for Hubbard and 17 for Miles Sanders. Chuba Hubbard's a start. You're starting Chuba Hubbard. He's getting carries. He had 23 carries and 2 catches. So he had 25 touches in this game. The previous game, 25 touches. The game before that, 19 touches. So ever since they canned Frank Reich, Chuba Hubbard's their guy apparently. So I like the Chuba Hubbard. He's kind of the only player I'm starting as like an RB2. Adam Thielen, I always say it, thankful for what he did, but 5 for 74 doesn't kill you, but he's definitely not back to where he was before. I mean, Jonathan Mingo I thought was a sneaky pickup this week. 10 targets last week, 9 this week. it just turned into 2 catches for 22 yards. So maybe hold on to him, but I'm not starting him if I don't have to next week for sure. But he is still getting the touches. This team's bad. Chuba Hubbard's the only player I want to start here. Speaking of bad teams, like Derek Carr, he did throw for 2 touchdowns, but only 119 yards. So everyone's going to suffer here. Chris Olave thankfully caught a touchdown, or else he would have had a horrendous game. Still starting Olave, and I'm starting Kamara, and that's basically it. We did see Jamal Williams get a little bit more run in this game. That was partly maybe because of no Taysom Hill, in my opinion. So Taysom Hill's been getting 8, 9, 10 carries a game, and that seemed to go to Jamal Williams. In terms of the snaps, though, it's still, 28 snaps for Kamara, 23 for Jamal. I'm still starting Kamara. He had 12 for 56. They're going to use him in the end zone. He only had 3 catches, and he had negative yards receiving, but he's going to be a good play. So it was disappointing. Thought he was going to smash, but it's Kamara and Olave, and that's really it on this team. Taysom Hill when he comes back. So just another bad team, and I don't really want to talk about these guys for very long. So we'll move on to the Vikings at the Raiders, and this is another game where I just don't even want to talk about it. Like, what the hell was that? They didn't score any points until the fourth quarter. The game ended up 3-0. Like, this was disgusting. Josh Dobbs gets benched. So you can move on from Josh Dobbs. Like, it was nice while it lasted. The only bright spot for the Vikings was Madison was running well, 10 for 66. And then he got hurt and never came back. So Ty Chandler needs to be picked up because I believe when he came back, and I'm just double checking here. So Madison played 21 of the possible 30 snaps in the first half. After the injury, Chandler for the rest of the game. So it was Chandler needs to be rostered. He's going to see over 60% of the snaps, and you could potentially start him because I think he's a pretty good player. He could be explosive. Now, 12-35 is not great, but he can catch the ball, 3 catches. So he's a potential start next week if you're desperate. So pick up Ty Chandler. Hopefully Madison's not too hurt. Hawkinson, you're always starting, even in a bad game, 5 for 53. So in a game where the Vikings passed for 99 yards, 53 of them went to Hawkinson. So as you could tell, no one else was good. Jefferson left the game early. I don't know if I heard he went to the hospital. That's rough. I don't know if he's going to come back. So basically for me on this team is Hawkinson's kind of the only must start. I want to avoid Addison until I see him be good without Kirk Cousins, which he really hasn't been. I think he had maybe a good game in there. And I know obviously Jefferson going out helps him. Let's see. Kirk Cousins last played on October 29th. So since then, we have 5 games here. 5 games, and Addison has not had more than 70 yards, has not caught a touchdown, and doesn't have more than 6 catches in the game. So I want to avoid Addison. I need to see him with Nick Mullins, if he's the quarterback, have a good game. So to me, it's just Hawkinson on this team that's a must start. Chandler might be a decent play this week. On the Raiders side of things, monitor Josh Jacobs. I think he left early as well. Knee injury in the fourth quarter, didn't return. So Zamir White he's the handcuff. I've been telling people to kind of pick up handcuffs for your teams. This is why you do it at this point in the season. So if you have Josh Jacobs, you really need to go out there and go after Zamir White for sure. Yeah, it was just bad. Like, I'm still starting Devontae Adams, even in a game where they threw for less than 150 yards, he had 53 yards receiving, and he had 10 targets and 7 catches. So he's going to be like a Garrett Wilson play rest of the season. You're going to get games like this that don't kill you, over 12 points in PPR, over double-digit points or just under double-digit, like 9 points in half PPR. They don't kill you, but they don't help you win. That's just what he's going to be. You hope he's a top 24 guy. Jacoby Myers, you can bench, and just, monitor Josh Jacobs. It's just a gross game overall. So we're just going to move on to the Seahawks at the 49ers. Seahawks they held their ground for a bit in this game, and then the 49ers pull away. In terms of the Seahawks, they did it with Drew Lock. Don't know what's going on with Geno. It was a groin injury. It wasn't the shoulder stuff that we thought he was going to miss when he played the Cowboys on a short week. Or it wasn't a short week, but when he played the Cowboys, we thought he was going to miss that game. It wasn't that shoulder injury. It was a groin. So monitor Geno's. I still think Drew Lock's fine in terms of, obviously you're not starting him, but in terms of keeping fantasy relevant players on this team, a.k.a. Tyler Lockett and Metcalf. So, Lockett 6 for 89. You'll take that from Lockett. Metcalf, only 2 catches, but he got 52 yards and a touchdown. He has explosive potential. 49ers are a really good defense. So if it is Drew Lock, I'm not too worried about it. I'm still probably starting Metcalf. They play the Eagles, Titans, Steelers the next 3 weeks. I like those matchups. So Metcalf's still a starter with or without Geno. The running backs are confusing on this team. They were both questionable, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Kenneth Walker got more snaps. They both had one had 9. Charbonnet had 9 carries. Kenneth Walker 8. I'm still probably going to start Kenneth Walker, but man, I'm nervous. Is it just going to be 50-50? I know this team was down a lot in a lot of 2-minute drills and third down, a lot of third downs and stuff like that. So that led to Charbonnet probably still in a better positive game strip where they can run the ball a little bit more, control the game. They're not chasing points. I think they could be okay. Now they do play the Eagles. Can that be a close game? I don't know. But then they get the Titans and Steelers the last 2 weeks. So I still like Kenneth Walker's, I guess what I'm trying to say. I'm still like DK Metcalf. The 49ers are awesome. Like Brock Purdy is going to be Mr. maybe MVP, ho-hum. Christian McCaffrey, not one of his better fantasy point games, 145 yards rushing. Jordan Mason stole the touchdown from him. Deebo Samuel had a 1-yard touchdown. Deebo's awesome, 7 for 149 and a touchdown. Brandon Ayuk's awesome, 6 for 126. George Kittle's awesome, 76 yards and a touchdown. So you're starting all those guys. There's nothing to talk about with the 49ers. You're starting Purdy if he's your main guy. You're starting McCaffrey. You're starting Deebo, Ayuk, and Kittle. They can all produce like they did this week. So we'll just move on from there. Nothing to talk about with those 49ers. They're the best team in the NFL, and I think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year if they all stay healthy. Bills Chiefs is the next game. Controversial ending. Kadarius Toney was offsides, and no, I checked. He did not check with the referee, at least unless what I saw was cut out. They cut that part out or something. I saw the all-22 film, and maybe he did it right before the all-22 started, but you see Rashee Rice on the other side check with the ref. Kadarius Toney did not. He was clearly offsides. Now, did they warn him and stuff? I don't know, but Bills saved their season. They needed this win desperately. And, Bills, surprisingly, they're right there, and they can make the playoffs. I think they're just out of the playoffs. Yeah, oh no, they are. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams that are 7-6. Bills are the last team on that list, but they definitely have their chance. Josh Allen is Josh Allen. Even in this kind of not so great of a game against a tough matchup, he still gave you 230 yards and a touchdown, 30 yards on the ground and a touchdown. So he was still fine. He just dicks his way around and puts up 25 fantasy points. It's amazing. James Cook should be started in most leagues. He's been really good this year, and especially lately since this coordinator change. James Cook has been getting a lot of touches. Let me just double check. So the last game with their offensive coordinator was the Denver game. So 3 games since then, James Cook has had 20 touches, 22 touches, 15 touches in this last game. That includes 17 carries, 16 carries. That includes 4, 7, and 5 targets. James Cook is a start. So he had 132 yards and a touchdown with 5 catches. A little worried about Stephon Diggs, although L'Jarius Sneed just shuts guys down all the time. So I think he can have a little bit better of a game against the Cowboys next week. Still starting Diggs, obviously. You're starting Allen, your Diggs, and Cooks, James Cook. I don't know how you can start. I think we can get away from Dawson Knox at this point, and we can get away from Dalton Kincaid. So you look at the numbers when Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid play together, and it's not good for Kincaid. So I don't want to be starting him if I can avoid it. Other than that, with these Bills and the Chiefs, you kind of know too. I know Mahomes has been bad. I'm still rolling with Patrick Mahomes. I shouldn't say bad, but he hasn't been top 3 guy. He's been like a top 8 guy. I'm still rolling with Patrick Mahomes no matter what. That's just how I play. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So the running back snaps here, just to let you know. So no Isaiah Pacheco in this game, obviously. So it was pretty split. Clyde 32, McKinnon 30. Clyde had all the early down work. McKinnon had 1 goal line snap and was getting the third down and 2-minute drill stuff. So I think in a better game script, you're going to see a little bit more for Clyde, in my opinion. I think Clyde's going to take basically Pacheco's role. So I think in games where they're winning more, you're going to actually see a little bit better. And I think if Pacheco's out, I think Clyde can still be started. They play the Patriots next week. They should be able to run the ball. So Kelsey, you're going to start him. Rashee Rice has been a must start for the last few weeks now. I don't know how in 3 wide receiver leagues, like you're starting Rashee Rice. He's been good. 3 straight games of double-digit points in half PPR. So ever since the bye, he's been really good. It's still Mahomes and Kelsey, Pacheco if he's in there, and Rashee Rice. So Chiefs are also easy. So we have 2 more games for you. We have the Broncos and the Chargers. Broncos win this game. We'll start with the Broncos. If Russell Wilson is a guy that's out there on waivers and you need a quarterback, he's not a bad choice. Now, this is only his 2nd game in like the last 8 where he threw for over 200 yards, but he's been doing it on the ground. Didn't do it in this game, but he threw for 220 and 2 touchdowns. You'll take that. If you don't have CJ Stroud this week, if you lost Justin Herbert, if you lost Josh Dobbs, Russell Wilson giving you 220 and 2 is going to feel very, very nice. And he's going to do stuff on the ground too. So Russell Wilson is QB 13 on the year. He's had, since the Broncos have been good, really, their last 6 games, he's had a really good floor. His worst game in the last 6 games is 14.5 points. And he's just giving you a safe, 16 to 18 points, in my opinion. Javonte finally found the end zone. He's still getting the touches, so I still want to start him as a low-end RB2, and I hope he finds the end zone. He's not going to be very efficient, but the fact is he's getting 20 touches, and we just can't really go away from those type of players. So he had 40 snaps. The next closest was Samaje at 14. Cortland Sutton just keeps somehow doing it. 3 for 62 and a touchdown. At this point, you just say this is who Cortland Sutton is. The dude is wide receiver 19 on the year. He's averaging 11.6 half PPR points. He's had 1 bust game this year and then 1 meh game. Other than that, all the other games have been over 9 points, and only 2 have been under double digits, right? So they played 13 games. He's had 1 bust, 1 meh at 7.5 points, 2 games where he had 9.1 and 9.9, which you're fine with. So we're talking about 9 games in which he's been right in that range of 10 to 15 points. This is who he is. This is what he's going to do. Russell Wilson looks for him in the red zone. He has 10 touchdowns this year in 13 games, so he's going to end up with 13 touchdowns. Dude's been good, and that's really it. It's Russell Wilson if you need a quarterback. He's not a bad low-end one low-end QB1 starter. Javonte, to me, is still a low-end RB2, and I'm fine with him getting 20 touches. And then Cortland Sutton and everyone else don't want to start at all. On the Charger side of things, I don't think Herbert's going to come back, to be honest. He's already missing Thursday night. What's the point of bringing him back? They're going to be 5-9 most likely after this week, or maybe they'll be 6-8. I don't know, but it sucks. Easton Stick, he's been around a while. I don't think he's very good. I just hope he can manage. Now, he did throw a lot to Eckler, so if you have Eckler and you made the playoffs somehow, you should feel okay. I think Eckler's going to have a good run here. They have a really good matchup. I'm worried about Keenan Allen. Like, if he can give me – he might be in that Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams range. It's like, man, if he can just give me 6 for 70, I'm okay. And then maybe have one big game in the playoffs where he catches a touchdown. So that's just he's hopefully a top 24 receiver. Don't think he's the top 5 guy he was with Herbert. Quentin Johnson had 3 for 91. Still don't know if you can rely on that. And yeah, it's going to be tough with the Chargers without Justin Herbert, that's for sure. So if he's already out this game, I'm really only starting Eckler and Keenan Allen for sure. Like that's probably the only 2 I'm actually starting. So we will finish up here with the last game, the Sunday night game. The Eagles at the Cowboys. Cowboys beat them up, man. I thought this was going to happen in this game. It just felt like the Cowboys playing really, really good football. I really want to see the Cowboys 49ers play again. I think Cowboys are a different team at this point. They found their offense, and Dak's been awesome. The Eagles side of things, it was a bad game for Jalen Hurts. You're still starting Jalen Hurts. Don't care. You're still starting Jalen Hurts. So DeAndre Swift is another question. If you want to get away from him, you can. He hasn't been as good as he has been to begin the year, obviously. In terms of snaps, he had 27 to Gainwell's 25. And, it's a little concerning with Swift. So he's RB 18 on the year. But, the fact is, like, after his hot start since week 7, he's had 2 very good games in half PPR over double digits. 3, I'm fine with the games if he's like my flex, and then 2 bust games. They have just come in back-to-back weeks. So that's the problem. Now tough matchups. They had the 49ers and the Cowboys. So I'm still going to start Swift, and he gets Seahawks, Giants, Cardinals. I really love that schedule for DeAndre Swift. A.J. Brown had a good game for 9 for 94. Devontae Smith, 5 for 73. Fine with those guys. Start them. You're still starting them. Goddard, you're probably still going to start as well. Hopefully this team can bounce back. The Cowboys, Dak is a no-brain starter. Tony Pollard, you're still starting for most weeks. He had 23 touches, 7 catches. He's been better as of late. He's the RB10 on the year. I think that would shock people to hear that. He had a really good start of the year. First 3 weeks, 21.2, 16.4, 13.6. This is in half PPR. And then he had that lull from weeks 4 to 10. So we're talking about 6 games there where he did not score more than 8 points. He seems to be back. 16, 19.3, 15.8, 13.1. So he's RB10 on the year. He's averaging 12.5 half PPR points, and he's been doing it lately. I'm fine with starting him. Jake Ferguson is a start at tight end. He's kind of like the second option on this team. Maybe it's Brandon Cooks. Sometimes it's Jake Ferguson. He's definitely like the main guy in the red zone, though. Him and CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb, 6 for 71 and a touchdown. Lamb, Ferguson, Pollard, Dak, they're all starters. You guys know this. Don't need me to say that. So that's all we have for you. Hopefully you guys make the playoffs. We're going to be back throughout until the end of the regular season. We're going to start putting out some more Dynasty content for you Dynasty football players, looking at starting to scout some guys because we're getting into that prime time of trading running backs and gathering picks and stuff like that. So as always, like and subscribe to the channel. We'll catch you guys next time.